Hola. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Eliana. Good morning. I'm Eliana. Bienvenidos a la Iglesia Unitaria Universalista de Fresno. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. Welcome to everyone on our virtual campus and everyone on our Alluvial campus. We are one congregation in many places. If you are on our virtual campus, now is the perfect time to share this live stream with your Facebook or YouTube friends and followers. In doing so, you are inviting them to join you at church this morning. You are sharing the spiritual depth and soulful uplift our Sunday services provide. This morning, we acknowledge that our Alluvial Avenue church campus sits within the traditional homelands of the Yokuts and Mono peoples. As Unitarian Universalists, we welcome you no matter your race, culture of origin, age, spiritual background, or religious beliefs. We welcome you no matter your disabilities, the amount of money in your bank account, your level of education, or your neurodiversity. You are welcome with or without documentation, con papeles y sin papeles. You are welcome if you are lesbian, gay, bi, trans, non-binary, gender fluid, or questioning. Todos son bienvenidos aquí. If you are on our virtual campus and you wish to share a personal joy, sorrow, concern, or gratitude on both the virtual and alluvial campuses, type it now in the chat box. This is the moment to type your joy, sorrow, concern, or gratitude, and we'll write them down and give them to Tim so we can include them later in the service. If you don't do it now in the chat box, we won't have time to include them. As you may know, we are in the midst of our annual pledge drive. This is that festive time when the members and friends of the church let the staff know how much we will generously share in terms of financial support during the upcoming fiscal year, which runs from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. Your pledge allows us to build our budget based on the total amount of money we expect to be donated from the church's members and friends. Here to give us an update is Reverend Tim.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, I think a little more enthusiasm than that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So I have the great pleasure of announcing the second week total. Normally we have a drum set here and we have a drum roll. So yes, please, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. And the total is $419,236. That is 68% of our goal of $612,892. Woo, woo, woo. This leaves $193,656 to be pledged. Thank you to the 96 people or families that have already made their pledge. My question to you here on Alluvial Ave and my question to you on our virtual campus, have you made your pledge yet? If you haven't, please stop by the pledge drive table on our Alluvial Ave campus, and here on our virtual campus, you can send your pledge to pledge@uufresno.org. That's pledge@uufresno.org. Please make your pledge sometime today, preferably now. Thank you.
Chat box, in person, or in the silence of your heart, let's take a moment to greet one another.
Fresno has many, many blessings. And sometimes those blessings come in the form of world-class musicians. I'm excited as we begin our service to welcome back Eva Scow and Tom Scott. They already have a standing ovation in the back there. They are extraordinary. Their music is a blessing to us and to this hurting world.
Hello again. My name's Eliana. If you're on our virtual campus and you have a candle or chalice of your own this morning, please bring it close as we'll be lighting it soon. Our chalice lighting words come from Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Dr. Rebecca A. Savage. Welcome, sweet soul, to this place of renewal and hope. Here we welcome your tender places and yearnings to be fully present. Welcome, sweet soul, to this place of meaning and belonging. Here we welcome your questions and wonderings on the journey towards wholeness. Welcome, sweet soul, to this place of compassion and heart. Here we welcome you, all of you, and we invite you in as you are, as we are. Here we welcome you to renew your connection to the spirit of life. Renew your relationship with the sacred, the interdependent web of all existence. Welcome, sweet soul. Bienvenido, alma precioso. Come, let us celebrate together. In that spirit, I invite you to light your chalice or candle at home. Tim, will you please light the chalice on our...
You bet, Ileana.
Let's rise now in body or spirit and join in singing our song of praise. Morning has broken.
Has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for the springing, fresh from the world. Surge l'aurora qual la primera, canta la raca voz inicial. Lor al canto, lor al alba, ya su principio transcendental. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where our feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the same night Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, love's recreation of a new day.
I invite us to remain standing as we say together the words of our mission statement. La misión de la Iglesia Unitaria Universalista de Fresno es amar inclusivamente, crecer espiritualmente, servir con gratitud y trabajar por la justicia. The mission of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno is to love inclusively, grow spiritually, serve gratefully, and work for justice. Please be seated as Nico lowers the lights for our video. And Ian, if we could have the video.
What brought me to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno is that a friend of mine saw the Black Lives Matter banner. and was drawn to that. And when I heard about that, I thought, oh, I need to investigate this. Well, it was at the beginning of the COVID lockdown, so we weren't able to meet in person, but I went online and investigated, and I became one of the first, I think, people who became a member online. I am a retired teacher and public school administrator and a lifelong learner, and I just love the different offerings, the different educational opportunities that the UU Church of Fresno provides. Not only does Rev Tim provide all kinds of personalized educational opportunities, but I have been involved in national opportunities as well. The principles just speak to things that I had been thinking for a while but could not articulate, and for me, it has just brought everything together. What's important to me as we move forward is that we actually continue to provide the financial resources to fulfill the principles. We need to be able to get out there and do that. There are so many avenues that people can participate in, and even if you aren't able to actually get out and support those in person, financially, you can support it as well. It's really important that we are able to do that. Sometimes the world seems to be crashing in on us, and it seems as if we're little people in a sea. We're not, we're all together. And the UU Church provides those opportunities to actually get out and do something to help our fellow man and woman and animal, and to provide for a better world. And I think we can really do that. And with the help of everyone in the community, we can do that.
I love it. Margaret is so involved and was the first virtual member, new member of the congregation. I invite us now to take a deep centering breath in, and as we do so, we breathe in peace, we hold a moment, we breathe out love. And again, together, breathing in peace, we breathe out love. One more time together, breathing in peace. We hold the moment. We breathe out love. As we continue breathing together in this sanctuary that we create each week with our hearts, with our breath, with our hopes, I invite us to breathe together and allow that breath, perhaps with your imagination, to carry us back over the last 7 days, the last week, a gift that was ours to discover. We breathe into and through the pain and struggle, the joys and blessings. Question: what frightened or unsettled you in the last week? And as we breathe into that question, a second emerges. In the last week, what was the source of your strength, hope, or courage? As Unitarian Universalists, we call that source of strength, hope, and courage by many names. For some of us, that is God or Goddess. Some of us, it's the universe. Some of it's our own inner knowing. And for some of us, we give it no name, and yet we acknowledge there is that which is greater than all of us. And in that presence, we move into our time of sharing joys, sorrows, concerns, and gratitudes. On our virtual campus, some of us type those into the chat box, and some of us here on Alluvial Ave stopped the small table at the entranceway to the church and wrote them down on a small card. And as we prepare to share, first, we lift up our collective sorrow and deep concern for the people of Ukraine and the atrocity that is being perpetrated against them by Putin. We also join with so many here in Fresno and mourn the loss, the death of Jeffrey Robinson, the LGBTQ activist who had such an extraordinary impact in Fresno and the Central Valley, especially on LGBTQ youth. To say that he was the backbone of Fresno's LGBTQ community is an understatement. And so we lift up Jeffrey. And in our personal joys and sorrows, Judy Kuipers is celebrating another lovely morning, is grateful. And we are grateful, Judy, that you join us each week on our virtual campus. Kim is celebrating the happy to be alive weather yesterday. Evan has a joy that his wife Colby was physically able to go to the mountains yesterday and walk a couple of miles after more than a year of battling with sciatic pain, and the weather was blissful. I see a theme here on the weather. Linda Barker wants to give a big thank you to the staff and to church members for helping make her husband Dwayne's celebration of life so beautiful as we lifted up his legacy and mourned his loss but celebrated the gifts that he brought into this world. Sally S. is concerned for the Ukraine and the threat of World War III, and Jamie also wanted to lift up the life of Jeffrey Robinson. We also remember our beloveds, those who are unable to be with us today because of health. Today we especially lift up Laura G., who is at Stanford and facing some very critical medical procedures. She wanted to just say how much she appreciates your thoughts, your light, and your love. Keep it coming towards Laura G. She said, we are persevering and we are pushing through. We also lift up Judy P., Molly K., Glenda R., Pat M., Al G., and Brandon E. We also celebrate that Thursday was the National Day of Appreciation for Abortion Providers. If you would like to celebrate this on the virtual campus, type A into the chat box. And Tuesday was International Women's Day. I saw in The Atlantic this week that a reminder that International Women's Day started as a socialist holiday. Over time, as it became mainstream, it lost the specific association with working class and colonized women. And so we lift up that original intention of International Women's Day. And so for all that has been shared, for all that we hold in the sacred silence of our beautiful human hearts, and for all those who on this day have no one to remember them, no one to speak their name with tenderness or care, we light our candle of community. By our remembering, may we and they be blessed. As is our custom, we light a second candle this morning, acknowledging now that we have crossed past the 6 million person mark. 6 million citizens of the world have lost their lives in this pandemic. 963,000 were U.S. citizens. And so, in the light of these candles, our call to meditation. There is a love, hay un amor, a truth we all need to remember.
There is a love holding me. There is is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. Hay un amor sosteniendo todo que amamos. Hay un amor sosteniendo todo, yo descanso en este amor. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. Hay un amor sosteniendo todo que amamos. Hay un amor sosteniendo todo, descansamos en este amor.
Let us join together in the spirit of reflection or prayer. Let us pray. Spirit of life, fuente de amor, God, power of our own heart's understanding. We are bound by the threads of a dream that more is possible, even more than we have yet imagined. More peace, please, more peace, more love, more strength, more hope. A dream of kindness and connection. A dream of courage and commitment that will enable us to stay the course and admit when we have gone astray. May this dream hold us together until the dream is made real. I love how in Margaret's reflection from the virtual campus, she mentioned her appreciation of our principles, the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. We sometimes say that we are a non-creedal faith. And to understand what a non-creedal faith is, we have to understand what a creed is. A creed is a set of beliefs, a set of ways of thinking, usually that have been determined by other people sometime in the past. And in a religious setting, we're expected to sort of put our hearts on those ways of thinking, those beliefs. We say, someone figured out this truth and it resonates with me, and I accept it. And their creeds are wonderful things for folks that gravitate towards creeds. But Unitarian Universalists are a rambunctious bunch, and we don't gravitate towards creed. So I want to be really clear that as I lift up the difference, we are not saying anything negative about creeds. What we're doing is we're uplifting what joins us together as Unitarian Universalists, and that is, we say, and yes, thank you, a covenant. So a creed is a way of thinking, but we believe as Unitarian Universalists that we need not think alike to love alike. We need not think alike to love alike. So what we have as Unitarian Universalists is a covenant, which is kind of a fancy religious word that just means a set of promises that we're going to try to hold to about how we're going to be in relationship with each other and the world. So it's less about how we think and more about how we behave, how we act, how we want to be in the world. And over time, and countless discussions, and trust me, in the sermon you're going to hear about the countless discussions, we ended up with 7 core principles and purposes. These are the center, these are the heartbeat, these are the moral compass of how we're going to be in relationship with each other and the world. Not how we're going to think about things, but ideally how we're going to behave, how we're going to act. So today, as we reflect on the history of these principles, I thought it would be great for us just to remind one another of what they are. And so if you would join me reading on the screen. We covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large, the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. These are the religious principles that make us who we are as a faith tradition. These are the Unitarian Universalist ways of being in relationship with each other and the world. This is the thing that makes us one. But we almost didn't get here. We almost did not get to this unity. We almost broke apart. And that is the story of dissension, difference, disillusionment, and then exaltation that we will explore in the sermon. But first, we sing. I invite us to rise in body or spirit and join Bill and Leslie singing "We Are One."
smiling face, outstretched hand, through disputes, small and grand, we will lay down our guns. We are one. In the rage through the war, we have shared pain before. In our grief, when it's done, we are one. We are one. Where the earth touches sky, we are born, we all die. Where the clear waters run, we are one, we are one. When the light touches land, over sea, over sand, when each day has begun, we are one, somos uno. When the rock wears away and the tide rolls and sways, by the moon, by the sun, we are one, we are one. Where the earth touches sky, we are born, we all die. Where the clear waters run, we are one. We are one. In the soft of the night, we are learning not to fight. In our hearts, in the drum, we are one, somos uno. In the birth of a child, through the fierce and the mild, in our daughters and sons, we are one, we are one. Con los hijas y los hijos, somos uno, somos uno.
Please be seated. So our worship theme this month is renewing our faith. And in this moment within our denomination, there is something happening that we're going to talk more about next week, but there, from a grassroots uprising, I guess you could say, is a movement to add an eighth principle to our beloved 7 principles. And this eighth principle lifts up and acknowledges that within our tradition and within this country, there is a painful and horrible legacy of white supremacy culture that has crushed so many persons of color. And so this eighth principle, if we choose to vote and add it to our 7, will publicly say that we are adding this to our promises, to try to live more fully into that seemingly impossible dream of being a more multiracial, multicultural community. But if you don't understand where you've come from, you can never understand where you are now, and you can never understand where you might be going. And so today, the history of our 7 principles. Now, there was a time when I would not have been welcomed in a Unitarian Universalist congregation because I am a gay man. In the 1970s, there was a fierce battle within congregations that caused many people to leave as congregations, one after another, said, we are going to lift up the life of LGBTQ individuals. There was a time in our denomination when a woman would never have been ordained as a minister. There was a time when someone who didn't believe in God would not be welcomed. There was a time when someone who was a pagan would not be welcome within this faith. There was a time when they would have never allowed us to play secular music like Duke Ellington from the chancel because all that could be quoted was the Bible. All that could be quoted were holy, sacred music. But, dear ones, we are a living tradition. A living tradition. And what that means is we have a tradition. We have a tradition that reaches back over 2,000 years to touch the life and ministry of Jesus of Nazareth, but we are a living tradition, which means we adapt and change as our human understanding, as our consciousness adapts and changes. Our faith must grow to hold that. It's like the Dalai Lama once said, if your religious beliefs contradict science, then your religious beliefs are what have to change. Now, it's important to remember that Unitarian Universalism, for most of our history, were two separate religious streams of thought, two completely separate religions, both which trace their roots back to Judaism and the early teachings and followers of Jesus of Nazareth. Now, the Universalists were concerned with the nature of God, and the Unitarians were concerned with the nature of Jesus and human beings. The Universalists said, if there is a God, that God is a God of love, and if God is a God of love, then no one would be condemned to eternal damnation, to hellfire. All will be welcomed back to God's love from whence we came. Salvation came to all from God's universal love, hence the Universalists. And now, the Unitarians, on the other hand, really focused on Jesus. They believed Jesus was a human being, no different from you or me, except he was kind of like, maybe almost like Superman. He was kind of the fully evolved and realized human beings, and we're just still kind of trying to get there. And what's important about that is it meant that the Unitarians believed that Jesus' capacity for love and compassion was within each one of us. They believed that we were not stained with original sin, but they believed in a kind of original blessing, a blessing that could be cultivated, a human character that could be cultivated. The Unitarians said salvation came from human beings becoming fully realized, becoming fully loving, intelligent people. Salvation, the Unitarians said, happened in this life through human effort to better themselves. There's an old joke from 1800s America. The Universalists thought God was too good to send them to hell, and the Unitarians thought they were too good to be sent to hell. Now, very different beliefs and beginnings. They both started out as Bible-based, Jesus-focused, and free-thought Christians. The Universalists held on to that and got more and more liberal, but the Unitarians went, some might say, astray. So the Universalists stayed focused on God and the discipleship as followers of Jesus, but the Unitarians decided to rock the religious world. In the 1800s, a group of people, and you've heard me talk about this before, called the Transcendentalists. People like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Emily Dickinson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Walt Whitman, Elizabeth Peabody, and Louisa May Alcott, among many, many others, some of the greatest thinkers, some of the greatest minds of America. They introduced some radical religious thinking. First, they said, you don't need stories in the Bible to understand the power of divinity. You can have a direct experience of the divine through your own senses. You can step out and see a sunrise, that wow of wonder. That's the divine speaking to you. They believed that you could have a direct relationship with the divine, with divinity, and you could access it perhaps most easily through nature, a natural mysticism. What was also revolutionary about them is they looked beyond the Bible. They said the Bible's got some great wisdom in it, but it's a human-created book. And there are other religious traditions in this world that have other pieces of a truth that is greater than any one scripture could contain or detail. And so they were really the first group that started to look at Eastern religions and wisdom that was very different from the Christian tradition. This was so controversial, I can't even put words to it. It was like just taking TNT and exploding religious thought. It was controversial, and the majority of Boston's Unitarian ministers were horrified at this heresy, and they did everything they could to stamp it out. They tried to have Ralph Waldo Emerson, Theodore Parker, and others thrown out of the Unitarian Ministers Association. But as Unitarianism moved west out of that very stodgy New England, it became less and less Jesus-focused and more transcendentalist-focused, with a broad and experiential focus on the divine within each person. And that difference between the East Coast and the Midwest and then the West Coast got so mean and nasty, it almost led to a splintering of Unitarianism. Finally, wanting to preserve Unitarianism and allow there to be some plurality of belief, they drafted up this statement called Things Commonly Believed by Us, that focused on the pieces that we could all share, and then, and then they also outlined the things we couldn't agree on. So it was a way of saying, this is where we're the same, this is where we're different, and we want to try to live with that. But there remained this tension between the theists who wanted God and Jesus and the transcendentalists who wanted more. I'm going to just take another drink. I swallowed wrong. And then in the 1900s, a new divide emerged. And this threatened to really break apart the Unitarians. The humanists made an appearance. Who were the humanists? These were thinkers who said, you don't need God in order to be good. That coded within humanity is the knowledge of how we're meant to treat each other. And so with the humanists, it took away the need to even believe in God to be religious. You could be a Unitarian, you could be religious, and you didn't need God. It didn't mean you weren't allowed to have God. It just meant for those of us that God isn't part of how we understand the world, we could be welcome here. The Christian Unitarians were horrified at the humanists and the transcendentalists, thinking that they had gone really astray. The transcendentalists were horrified at the humanists because divinity and mysticism was so much a part of the transcendentalists. And they were also horrified by the Christian views, as they felt they were too limiting. And somehow you had to figure out how to create a container and a definition that was big enough to hold all of this together while still allowing there to be differences. Meanwhile, back on the Universalist side of things, They were getting more and more liberal and free-thinking, and some transcendentalist and humanism was entering in the picture, but they were still Bible-based, they were still Jesus-based. And this is where they found each other in the 1940s and the 1950s. Both the Unitarians and Universalists were a small denomination. They were struggling. They were losing members. They were the two most liberal faith traditions in America, and there was this shared focus around love. Love from God with the Universalists versus love from human beings, from the Unitarians, but love was at the center of it all, and so the Unitarians and the Universalists decided to consolidate and merge into one association or denomination. There was a problem. A very big problem. Their written stated beliefs were very different, and it seemed like it might be impossible to merge them. But because of the internal divisions and not wanting to break apart, the Unitarians had ended up, because you have the Transcendentalists, the Humanists, the Christians, they had ended up with a self-definition that was so unspecific as to be beyond vague. It lacked any real spiritual component. It really didn't have much religious inspiration. So in the 40s and the 50s, these were the 5 principles of Unitarianism: individual freedom of belief, discipleship to advancing truth, the democratic process in human relations, universal brotherhood, sexist, undivided by nation, race, or creed, and allegiance to the cause of a united world community. Contrast that to the Universalists, who looked a lot like a liberal Christian creed. This is the declaration of Universalism in the 40s and 50s. We're not going to read them all. I'm just going to lift up a couple sentences. The bond of fellowship, sexist, in this church shall be a common purpose to do the will of God as Jesus revealed it, and to cooperate in establishing the kingdom for which he lived and died. To that end, I guess I am reading it all, we avow our faith in God as eternal and all-conquering love, in the spiritual leadership of Jesus, and in the supreme worth of every human personality. And then, to further complicate it, at the end, they added this strange liberty clause: neither this nor any other statement shall be imposed as a creedal test, provided that the faith thus indicated be professed. Complete contradiction. So, we're left with the Unitarians and this vagueness. We have the Universalists and this God, Jesus saturated definition. And as they're moving towards a merger, it explodes into a real battle between those who wanted their God and Jesus and felt like it was being written out, against the humanists who wanted God to be out of the picture, and the transcendentalists who wanted to focus on plurality of belief and a mystical relationship with divinity. It's like they all wanted to dance together, but they couldn't agree on what song to play. And what was notable was who was not in the room where it was happening. Women, not in the discussion. BIPOC community, not in the discussion. It was white, male ministers determining the definition of a merging and emerging new faith tradition that had more women-identified members than men. So picture it: convention, late night, smoke-filled rooms, probably lots of alcohol flowing, staying up through the night, really wanting to make this merger happen, because there were true visionaries on all sides who saw the power, potential, and promise of a new Unitarian Universalism. They believed that the struggle they were in were birth pangs of a radical new way of being religious and being a beloved community. They believed that they could create a religion where we need not think alike to love alike. We need not think alike to love alike. They believed the covenantal faith based on love was possible. They believed they could be more than they were in that moment of time. And because of this belief and vision, a final agreement was drawn up, overwhelmingly approved by both General Assemblies of the Unitarians and the Universalists in Boston in 1960, and then reaffirmed a year later in Boston, when in 1961, the Unitarian Universalist Association was born to carry on the living tradition of these two different streams of thought, these two small but great religions. So, what did the first Unitarian Universalist principles look like? They were very different from our current 7 principles, and some of it is cringe-worthy in its language. So these are the 6 original principles of Unitarian Universalism. The members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, dedicated to a principle of free faith, unite in seeking, 1, to strengthen one another in a free and disciplined search for truth as the foundation of our religious fellowship. Fellowship is a sexist word. 2nd, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, and here's where the Universalists got their way, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage of love to God and love to man. Number 3, to affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man, sexist, and the use of the democratic method in human relationships. Number 4, to implement our vision of one world by striving for a world community founded on ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace. To this next one, it's really dry. To serve the needs of member churches and fellowships, to organize new churches and fellowships, and to extend and strengthen liberal religion. And the 6th, to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. If you want to hiss men of goodwill, you can do that. So, despite the real achievement of creating unity, and despite the celebration of the birth of this new unified religion, there was displeasure on many sides, most notably from those who felt left out. Most of all, it was the women of Unitarian Universalism who were most unhappy with the sexist, lifeless language. They became the catalyst for change that took 23 years to occur, change that faced opposition most notably from male ministers who wanted to remain in control. As Warren R. Ross wrote in 2006 in the Your World magazine, much of the credit for starting on the long and meandering path that led to the adoption of the reformulated 7 principles must go to Unitarian Universalist women. This was the 1970s, years when the U.S. women's movement was gathering momentum. Ross also notes, another emerging understanding also helped make the existing principles seem inadequate, that our relationship to the environment is one of our primary religious concerns. And so it was women and environmentalists who pushed for a new statement of principles that would better reflect a living tradition, authentic and relevant to the 1970s and 80s. And we needed language that was inspiring and spiritually rich, not sterile and dry. As the Reverend George Kim Beach proclaimed, we need a strong statement of the principles, one with religious integrity, intellectual coherence, and literary quality. So, in 1977, The Unitarian Universalist Women's Federation challenged the denomination to create new principles and drafted a version to present to congregations across the country. More discussion, more debate, and clarification followed. Who would Unitarian Universalists declare themselves to be for the future? There was a 1981 version. It was ghastly. Then there was a 1983 version that was better. And then a 1984 and a 1985 version that was approved. Some suggestions after 1981 draft included replacing fellowship with religious community. It was proposed that one of the principles would be to recognize the importance of equality among women and men. That one didn't get in the end document. It was proposed that to affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth and dignity of every human personality be changed to every person. And it was proposed that we defend and promote the integrity of the earth and our responsibility to protect its resources for future generations. And so, in 1983, a new version of the principles was presented, but it was not yet something that could be fully embraced. I am going to just lift up a couple. I'm not going to do them all. The number one principle was we affirmed our dedication to defend and promote a free and disciplined search for truth and meaning. That became a free and responsible search for truth and meaning and moved down the list. Next came love, mutual acceptance, and personal growth in our religious communities. This was transformed eventually into principle number 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. And one last, before we jump to the 7th, the next was the worth and dignity of every person. That was moved to number 1, and it became our beloved, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Ian, let's skip slide 109, 110, 111, and go to number 12, the environmental. This is what first existed, the integrity of the earth and our responsibility to protect its resources for future generations. That then became respect for earth and the interdependence of its living systems, which in our final version was poetically reconceived as respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Now, that was how our beloved 7 principles and purposes of Unitarian Universalism came into being and what we know today, approved at our 1984 National General Assembly and then reaffirmed by a near unanimous vote in 1985 with only one nay vote cast by a male voice in the back of the auditorium. Of that historic moment in the history of our covenantal religion, Lucille Schuck Longview, one of the leaders of the women's movement to transform the principles, wrote, "Because of the new principles, we are at a new beginning. We labor in a new field, in a new paradigm, a new reality construct. We must lift up and celebrate the fact that a phenomenal change has been embraced by the Unitarian Universalist Association, the intentional creation of a religion where we need not think alike to love alike. But we are a living tradition, which means something defined in 1984 should be able to evolve as needed to address new relevancies not even imagined 40 years ago. In 2009, a drastically redrafted version of the 7 principles was narrowly defeated by only 13 votes at our National General Assembly. I'll tell you, I didn't like the proposed changes, so I'm glad that version wasn't passed. But today, another historic moment in 2022, 155 congregations in a grassroots effort have added a new 8th principle to address our majority white denomination's growing understanding of just how pernicious and deadly white supremacy culture is to Black persons, Indigenous persons, Latinx persons, Asian persons, and Pacific Islander people. So before us is the question, do we, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno, California, want to become the 156th congregation out of 2,000 Unitarian Universalist congregations countrywide to adopt the 8th principle on a local level and force the issue of race to be addressed in our principles at a national level? This change in our principles is being driven by individual congregations like ours who are following the lead of BIPOC Unitarian Universalists. And if we choose to vote in May at our annual meeting, we can be that 156th congregation. The 8th principle is the topic of next week's sermon. And since it's just one principle, it's going to be a heck of a lot shorter sermon. Until then, will you join me in celebrating the breadth and depth of the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism with these words that we used last month, adapted by the Reverend Scotty Alexander? If you are willing and able, will you respond to me by reading aloud the bolded, italicized words? In a world with so much hatred and violence, we need a place that proclaims the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In a world with so much brutality and fear, we need a people that seek justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. In a world with so many persons abused and neglected, we need a religion that calls us to accept one another and encourage one another to spiritual growth. In a world of so much dogmatism and falsehood, we need a place that challenges us to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. In a world with so much tyranny and oppression, we need a people that affirm the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. In a world with so much inequity and strife, we need a religion that strives towards the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. In a world with so much environmental degradation, we need a place that advocates respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. In a world with so much uncertainty and despair, we need a religion that teaches our hearts to hope and our hands to serve. Que así sea, bendito sea. May it be so. Blessed be. Can I hear a loud amen? Navascow Tom Scotts. We are nearing the end of this epic service. Epic in lots of ways. On the second Sunday of every month, we are thrilled to welcome and honor a social justice organization or arts collective that reflects our principles, our 7 principles, our religious values. I am thrilled to welcome from Breakbox Thought Collective, Jamila Finlay. I have to say, go to their website, breakboxthoughtcollective.org. It's one of the most sensational websites I have ever seen. This is an incredible group doing incredible things. Please welcome Jamila. Yep, come on up. And once you're up here, you can unmask.
Greetings! Woo! Wow, I was fighting back tears, and then I've got like emotional goosebumps, and I'm just so overcome with the beauty of what I heard today and what I experienced and felt here today. So thank you so much for allowing us to share space with you. I'm Jamila Finley, and I'm the founder of Breakbox Thought Collective, a retired teacher of 21 years. Public school, retired English teacher. Breakbox Thought Collective is an incubator, and it's a maker space for creatives and thought leaders and activists and healers and people who just want to tell their story. And we see storytelling as a sacred act of healing. An article in Psychology Today offers this, that stories are a pathway to the right brain. Engaging our right brain engages our imagination, which makes us participants in the narrative. So, reflecting on that, Ashe Magazine is Breakbox Thought Collective's youth storytelling initiative, where young people ages 11 to 25, they engage in a paid internship opportunity. And as a part of that opportunity, they receive mental health and wellness support from licensed professionals. And they also receive community connections and career competency. Although Ashe is written by Black youth, Ashe is an intergenerational, multicultural space for collaboration. Our young writers are surrounded by professionals from all sectors and disciplines, and they support them as they're processing their life experiences. On March 26th, we are hosting a release event called 100 Black Voices, and it's for volume 4 of our magazine. We created this issue as an invitation into the world of 100 Black people of all ages and backgrounds, and 100 Black Voices, this issue tells complex and inspirational stories that place a clear focus on what it means to be human, no matter how dark your skin. March 26th celebrates our 4th year of Ashe Magazine, and we invite you to meet and encourage our writers. Let's let them know that they matter. Those who join us will learn more about Breakbox, enjoy a taste of soul food, a DJ, and live music. And this is a hybrid event, so you can also enjoy the event from the comfort of your home. To find out more about our event, check out our website, breakboxthoughtcollective.org/events, or follow our socials at BreakboxTC. Thank you for having us here today. We're grateful to be present in the assembly of this group of new ancestors. May your efforts to be better in this world continually be blessed.
Every dollar that you donate into our offering this morning will go to this important work of Breakbox Thought Collective, both on our virtual campus and as you leave the Alluvial Ave campus, the ushers will be holding baskets. So let's do our words of inspiration so that we may be as generous as our circumstances allow. If not us, then who? If not open hearts, then what? If not now, then when? If not here, then where? If not generously, then how? If not us, then who? Here's a slide letting you know how you can make a digital donation. Thank you in advance for saying yes.
Hola, soy Eliana. I'm so glad that I got to share today's service with you. It is wonderful seeing all your beautiful faces here on Alluvial Avenue campus. And it feels so good to know that so many more of you are on our virtual campus. We are blessed to be one congregation in many places. As we prepare to end our service and enter into our afternoon, please join us in our chalice extinguishing words. Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts. Thank you for letting me share this morning with you. Tim has some reminders before our closing words.
Let's give it up for Eliana. Always love it when you're here. Woo. I'm going to totally embarrass her. I'm thinking about 6.5 years ago, and you are just an extraordinary worship presence, so it's a real gift to have you, Eliana. So, first, before a few quick reminders, let's appreciate Leslie at the piano, Leslie Lyles at the piano. And again, let's rock the roof for Eva Scow and Tom Scott. So, how we exit safely in a time of a pandemic. We're going to allow our socially distanced section to leave first through these doors, and we invite the rest of you to head on out. We do invite you, especially if you're new or newish, to join us for coffee hour if you feel comfortable removing your masks to get some caffeine. New folks, it can be hard to make that step from this being a place that you visit to a place that you feel like you belong. Coffee hour is one of the ways it can happen, but it also means those of us who already know folks at coffee hour, we have to be as interested in our new folks as we are in our long-timers, because let me tell you, some of the most amazing new people are coming through this door. So welcome them, get to know them. Bill, you wanted me to remind everyone to pledge. And there's the pledge, pledge at uufresno.org. Last but not least, before closing words, we have a tradition that we like to welcome those who are here for the first, second, or third time. We don't do it to embarrass you. We are genuinely glad that on a day as glorious as today, you chose to be with us here on Alluvial Ave or on our virtual campus. So on virtual, if you could just type your name if you're a 1, 2, or 3-time visitor to the church. Here, if this is your first, second, or third time, would you just stand for a moment? We won't leave you standing by yourself for long, I promise. Welcome, hooray, welcome, 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 welcome. I invite the rest of the congregation to rise with them and let us join in our closing words. If you're here with a pod, you can join hands. If you're here on your own, hands over our hearts. Go now in peace. May you leave this place knowing you are good and knowing you are loved. Take your love from this place and share it with the world. Stay safe until we meet again. And may the long-time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and that pure light that is within you guide your way on. Blessed be. Amen. Leslie.
Go from here in peace, go with love. Go from here in peace. Come here in peace, go with love. In love, go in peace.
Shalom and assalamu alaikum. Have a great week, folks.